The death of a 17-year-old schoolgirl from the village of Ushkanka in the Krasnoyarsk territory in November 2024 evoked mixed feelings: horror, bewilderment, and sympathy. The girl was found in a pig pen. By all signs, she couldn't withstand the pain shock. There were tooth marks on her body. It's terrifying to imagine the torments the unfortunate girl endured in her final minutes. The investigators who arrived at the scene confirmed that the 11th grader had indeed been eaten by pigs. But how did the girl end up there? Traces of blows were found on her body that animals couldn't have inflicted. On a cool evening of November 23, 2024, Milena Shevalieva went to the barn to feed the animals and didn't return. Several hours later, her mutilated body was discovered by her boyfriend Vladimir. At first, it seemed like a monstrous tragedy. The animals had attacked the girl. But this was only the beginning of a horrific story, the end of which terrified the entire Krasnoyarsk territory at the time. Initially, the investigation was convinced that Milena had been torn apart by pigs. Multiple bites, a severed femoral artery, death from blood loss, everything pointed to that. But the truth turned out to be far darker. The schoolgirl was killed by a human, and the pigs only finished what was left. For days after the tragedy, the investigation identified the suspect. It was 41-year-old herdsman Igor Zykov. It was known that in 2003, he had already served time for murdering his own brother. The main question remains: what happened between the adult man and the 17-year-old schoolgirl? Before starting the video, I want to ask you not to forget to like and leave any comment. This helps promote the channel and videos. Remember, you're liking not the horrific story, but my work on this video. Also, I want to remind you that right now I'm giving away my first merch in my Telegram channel. Go to the link in the description and participate. Milena Shevalieva was the most ordinary girl from the village, who was 17 years old. Besides her, there were 4 more children in the family. The girl was in 11th grade, a time when all of life seems boundless. Schoolmates knew her as a bright and cheerful person, someone who never caused problems for her fellow villagers. There was no school in the village, so Milena had to travel 20 kilometers every day to Krutoyer. Her world wasn't city streets, but fields and farms, where she saw pigs, bulls, and other livestock every day. Milena's parents were farmers. Their business was meat. In the settlement, the Shevalievas were considered well-off people, with a large farm and an income that was very decent for the backwoods. Milena got along great with animals. At home, she had all sorts: chinchillas, turtles, fish, cats, and even a little hedgehog. The girl was very good, unspoiled, uncorrupted, handy, and loved making various crafts. That's how all her acquaintances described her. On that fateful day, November 23rd, her parents went to Krasnoyarsk, leaving their daughter alone to manage the household. In rural life, this was commonplace. Young helpers knew from childhood how to care for livestock, but no one could foresee that this evening would be Milena's last. In the evening, the schoolgirl went to feed the animals and didn't return. The girl didn't answer phone calls for a long time. Then her mother called her daughter's boyfriend and asked him to check if everything was okay. It was he who found the body. The guy immediately ran for help to the neighbors. They called an ambulance, but it was already too late. The arriving medics only confirmed death. The first question for the operatives and forensic experts was, what exactly happened? Perhaps the girl came to feed the animals, they knocked her down and attacked, or the bulls struck her. Milena lost consciousness and ended up on the floor. And it seems these versions are quite logical. The girl fell and hit her head, passed out, and later the starving pigs began to devour her body. The initial version of events was this. In the building, in enclosed stalls, there were bulls and pigs. Probably, 2 bulls got out into the corridor of the pen, and one of them hit the girl on the head, causing her to lose consciousness. After that, in the corridor of the pen, pigs attacked her and inflicted bodily injuries in the form of bites. At the time of the scene inspection, the bulls were not inside the barn. They had escaped. At the same time, many pigs remained locked in the stall. Only a few animals were near the body. However, soon the forensic experts, carefully studying all the evidence, interviewed neighbors, and sent the body for examination. Then the law enforcement officers got answers to their questions. The reality turned out to be far more terrifying. This was a cold-blooded, sophisticated, monstrous murder. The first suspect was the girl's boyfriend, who discovered her body. Vladimir was called in for questioning. At one point, they even began threatening him and forcing him to confess to the murder, but he stubbornly claimed he hadn't committed this cruel crime. When the DNA results finally came from the lab, they matched data already in the database, which meant only one thing: the killer was a recidivist. The investigators quickly established his identity. The criminal was Igor Zykov. 41-year-old Igor was born and raised in a village near Ushkanka. At 20, while intoxicated, he stabbed his brother and took all the valuables he had on him. Result: 13 stab wounds. After serving 5 years, he was released on parole in 2008, and a year later he was imprisoned again for theft. Once free, the man didn't last long. Soon he was convicted of robbery. Thus, Igor had been convicted 3 times. It was as if a horrific crime was just a matter of time for a person with 3 criminal records. Since 2013, Igor worked as a herdsman. Lately, the man lived in Ushkanka with his wife, who also had a conviction. Their house is located just 150 meters from the Sheveleva family's home. On the outskirts of the settlement are large cowsheds where Igor worked as a herdsman and his wife as a milkmaid. The schoolgirl's father was the manager there. Milena's father often scolded Igor for drinking. He responded aggressively right away. Despite the man's criminal past, most fellow villagers still didn't expect such brutality from him. Colleagues at the cowshed described him as an ordinary person. He worked, didn't do anything bad to anyone in the village. And why he suddenly snapped, no one understands. Igor Zykov had a quarrel with his boss, the father of the deceased girl, and then he decided to take revenge. By village standards, Zykov's salary was quite decent: 1,000 rubles per pig slaughter. However, grievances against the management grew. He complained about the lack of equipment and the behavior of the bosses, which, in his opinion, led to the dismissal of other employees. It was the conflict with the boss that became the spark that ignited the flame of the brutal murder. The detainee himself, struggling to find words, confessed to the investigators. Over time, it all accumulated. What exactly accumulated in him, he couldn't explain properly, but one thing was clear: grievances against the supervisor. He nurtured them carefully, and then one day, after a glass of vodka, Igor set out to exact his revenge. The investigation established that Igor entered the yard with a knife and a club, intending to slaughter the domestic livestock and destroy the boss's property. In the barn, he encountered his daughter Milena and attacked her. At first, the criminal claimed he didn't intend to take the girl's life, but she resisted, scratched his face, and Igor lost control. At some point, he became aroused by what was happening. Igor went berserk, struck the schoolgirl several times on the head with the club, and the girl fell unconscious. After that, the man committed a sexual act against her. The criminal snatched the mobile phone from the stunned schoolgirl and headed away. On the way out, he noticed the pigs had broken out of the pen. A man who had spent his whole life among livestock instantly assessed the danger. He knew these animals could finish off the lying girl. That's exactly what he counted on. The pigs would mutilate the body, and everything would be written off as an accident. Igor knew that pigs by nature are omnivores and, when very hungry, eat raw flesh. Therefore, he deliberately threw the still-living schoolgirl into their pen, hoping they would destroy all traces. The pigs literally gnawed at the body. The girl died from blood loss. The criminal hoped to deceive justice, but modern forensics turned out not to be as foolish as Zykov hoped. After fleeing the crime scene, Zykov burned the girl's phone in his home stove. At first, he planned to sell it, but the screen shattered during the struggle. Right after the murder, with a scratched face, he appeared at work. His attempts to hide the scratches under a jacket and balaclava aroused suspicion in his partner. The man saw Zykov leaving the Sheveleva's yard that evening. It was he who called the brother of the deceased and reported his suspicions. But by then, the investigators had already detained Igor. When the panic and search for the girl began, Igor Zykov returned to the crime scene. He even helped extract Milena's body from the pen. He helped me pull her out. He had a flashlight. We carried her out, and then he said something and ran home. How is that possible? To commit such a thing and then help pull her out? This isn't a human. With genuine horror, one of the neighbors recalled the events of that day. In the investigative experiment, the detainee with a scratched face and hands cuffed showed how it all happened. The camera captured his t-shirt with the inscription "Hope." The accused partially admitted guilt in the crimes charged against him. The criminal case was sent for approval of the indictment. The farewell to the deceased took place on November 26, 2024. She was buried in Ushkanka. Among the village cemetery, one fresh grave stood out. In the photo, a bright, cheerful girl whose long and bright life was cut short so cruelly. Her departure shocked the entire settlement. Fellow villagers, as if awakening from a terrible dream, still can't believe the reality of what happened. Ushkanka is a Siberian village where everyone is in plain sight, so a crime here is an event that hits everyone. The arrest of the killer stirred the whole village. Parents stopped letting children out alone, especially girls. The monster lived nearby, worked with everyone, and no one saw him as a threat. In big cities, it's simple. If a worker and boss don't get along, one leaves, the other fires. Something like that. But in a village or hamlet, it's completely different, much more tangled. In Ushkanka, there are only about 30 houses and a couple hundred residents. They all work at one large agricultural enterprise, Andronovskoy, where they produce milk, meat, and grain. Locals still call it a sovkhoz. That's how they're used to it. The enterprise covers several villages and settlements. Around them stretch fields of grain with dryers and cowsheds standing. Managers oversee everything, and one of them is the father of the murdered girl. If talking about work, nearby there's only Andronovskoy. Those with a car can look for options at other agro-complexes, but they're farther away. Without a car, honestly, choices are slim. Maybe shift work. The most horrific thing in this story: the girl could have been saved. She only lost consciousness. The examination confirmed death occurred from the animal attack. Milena was torn apart alive by pigs while she was unconscious in the barn. At the end of October 2025, the trial began. The court dragged on because Igor Zykov demanded to be tried with a jury, which complicates the procedure. Zykov understands he's facing 20 years to life, so he's trying to delay the sentencing as much as possible. The main thing Igor Zykov wants to achieve is to be tried for manslaughter, not premeditated murder. In other words, only then can he avoid a life sentence. At the moment, no sentence has been passed on him yet. And what do you think? What punishment do such criminals deserve? I'm waiting for your thoughts and opinions in the comments. In the small town of Kamensk-Uralsky, where life flowed steadily, a tragedy suddenly occurred that shook the local residents. In August 2023, 16-year-old Dana Ilinik was found dead in a ravine. The news of her murder spread through the city, causing a wave of shock and bewilderment. The mysterious death of 16-year-old Dana alarmed the entire Sverdlovsk region. The girl was returning home on the last train and seemed to foresee her demise. She wrote on social media, "Please don't kill me," and she vanished without a trace on the way. And the next evening, she was found dead in the forest. Who was Dana afraid of? What happened to her? How the whole city joined the investigation and what was discovered thanks to caring people. But everything in order. Also, for everyone who has trouble with YouTube, my videos are released on Boosty, where there are no problems and no ads, and exclusive videos will also be released. The link to Boosty is in the video description. Dana Ilinik, born on July 9, 2007, in the city of Kamensk-Uralsky, studied at secondary school number 16 with in-depth study of certain subjects. Dana was an ordinary schoolgirl, dreaming of a future full of bright events and achievements. Classmates described her as a good, independent, friendly, cheerful, and joyful person who always tried to help. According to her parents, their daughter had no problems with studies, was responsible and purposeful, knew how to set goals and achieve them. Dana was raised in a large family. The girl was the eldest of 6 children. Her parents had long been divorced, and in Kamensk-Uralsky, the 16-year-old girl lived with her mother and stepfather. She coped very well with her younger brothers and sisters. At school, she was always active and creative. Together with the girls, they drew newspapers and congratulations for holidays. In 2023, the schoolgirl finished 9th grade and entered a pedagogical college in Ekaterinburg, as she dreamed of becoming a teacher. According to the head of the press service of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Sverdlovsk region, the girl was raised only by her mother Inga. But she maintained contact with her father Alexander, and neighbors described her large family as prosperous. The family is good, friendly, polite, always greet, never heard shouts or scandals. This girl didn't talk to anyone in the entrance. The family is prosperous. They had 6 children. The little ones constantly rode scooters. Relatives and someone else helped the mom with the children. The older girl was normal, not wild. Dana's personal life was fine, and despite her young age, she was in a romantic relationship. It was with her boyfriend Dima that the girl communicated shortly before her death. At that time, the couple had quarreled. She sent him a video recorded on the way from the station to home. In it, Dana addressed a dog she encountered on the path, uttering prophetic words, "Here comes my death. A dog will eat me in the forest. Dog, don't eat me." A native of the Sverdlovsk region, she ran a channel on Telegram and pages on social networks, where she posted photos from school, walks with girlfriends and classmates, and pictures with animals, which she loved very much. Late in the evening of August 8, 2023, Dana arrived by train from Ekaterinburg. The girl got off the train at 23:05, wrote a post addressing her fellow townspeople, and headed from the railway station home, as buses weren't running then. "Dear Commency, I'm insanely happy to be with you on the same land again, but now buses aren't running, and I'll have to walk home solo. So please don't kill me. I want to get home, at least today." Many think she foresaw that something might happen to her and wanted to protect herself, says the father of the deceased, Alexander. "It seems to me she wrote this to reproach her boyfriend later, who was supposed to meet her but didn't come. We talked on the phone that evening. She asked me not to pick her up. Probably wanted to throw it in his face in the morning that she had to return home alone." Questions arise from the fact that the channel of the deceased 16-year-old girl from Kamensk-Uralsky on Telegram, which had 66 subscribers, was deleted the same night Dana disappeared. Who did it remains unclear. Maybe this way the girl wanted to make her boyfriend worry, or perhaps the alleged killer did it. Why? The last person the girl contacted by phone was her boyfriend. But no one believes he could have harmed Dana. They had been dating for 2 years, were in great relationships. "I trust him," adds Alexander. According to the father, the 16-year-old Dana had long stopped reporting every step to her parents. On August 8th, her mother was at the dacha with her husband and younger children. The woman, according to Alexander, didn't even suspect her daughter wasn't home. And only on August 9th, returning home, the family became worried. In 2017, the woman turned to the police. The last time the girl, who had to walk 6 kilometers in the dark alone, was in touch was at 23:30, when she passed the non-operating Café Ararat that day. The report of the disappearance of the schoolgirl from Kamensk-Uralsky came to the internal affairs bodies from her mother in the evening of the next day. And already at 23:50, police officers found the missing girl dead between the diagnostic center and the Bainovsky Bridge in a small ravine, about 10 meters from the sidewalk path running along the forest park zone. Alexander Ilinik, commenting on the tragedy, said that his daughter, having passed the exams for pedagogical college, didn't want to live in the dormitory and asked to rent her an apartment. She planned to start earning independently, and that day she was interning at Rostelecom. The father of the deceased emphasized that his heiress had no health problems, and she turned to the clinic only for colds. So the version that she could have felt ill seems implausible to him. The man shared with journalists the information he received from the investigative committee. No signs of assault, including sexual, were found on Dana. Her phones and documents, which she carried in her hands, were missing. The preliminary cause of death was poisoning by synthetic substances. According to media, she had all signs of pulmonary edema. The conclusion will be in a month, when this substance is identified. Investigators began requesting all video recordings to piece together the full picture. Someone was there, or someone met or waited or smoked at this stop. I don't know what happened. I also deny prohibited substances. I doubt a person under prohibited substances would communicate like she did, stated the girl's father. Tests immediately after her death revealed a very high concentration of caffeine in her blood. This may be related to energy drinks she consumed on the day she was found dead. Pieces of tissues and organs were sent for histological examination, which should clarify what exactly she died from, what the mechanism of death was. It could be hidden injuries or the result of exposure to some substances or their combination. A new twist in the case appeared on August 29th. Then, in the publics of Kamensk-Uralsky, videos from city surveillance cameras were published. They traced Dana's path from the station toward home. The recordings show a man on a bicycle following the girl for a long time. He first pursues Dana, and then, after some time, returns back. An illogical route. He made a big detour. By his behavior, I'm absolutely sure he may be involved, says the father of the deceased. At the same time, the investigator rules out the version that she could have been strangled, since no signs of violent death were initially found. According to his version, the cyclist followed her, later dragged her into the forest. She started screaming, and then he covered her mouth and nose. Dana tried to photograph him. The frightened one blocked her airways, laid her in a pit, and took the phone. In September, one of the TV programs tried to figure out the causes of the girl's death. Her father came there. They invited Dana's friend and her boyfriend Dmitry, who participated in her search, to the studio. Alexander later began investigating his daughter's mysterious death himself. He found out that at 23:51, the cyclist overtook her, went into the forest where the victim was later found. The man came out at 0:17 and hastily left the place, leading the bicycle beside him. All this is confirmed by surveillance cameras installed on the route the schoolgirl walked. A representative of the investigative committee commented on the situation, noting that in connection with the discovery of the teenager's body under the article on murder and theft, a local resident, Eduard Golikov, who followed her on a bicycle, was arrested. The man worked at a metallurgical plant and had previously been held criminally liable. It took a day to detain him, and he and his lawyer deny guilt. Dana's phone. The suspect allegedly just took it and threw it away and didn't call an ambulance for the girl because he didn't think she needed help. Subsequently, it turned out that the phone, wrapped in paper, which the schoolgirl carried, was buried a kilometer from her body. Dana's father said that a week before the detention, Eduard sent the deceased a message, "Are you alive?" Investigators charged the girl's phone and found that the message was indeed sent from Golikov's number, but he didn't explain where he got the victim's number. The version that they were acquainted has no confirmation. Later, 36-year-old Golikov repeatedly changed his testimony. However, during one of the interrogations, he still confessed to the murder of the schoolgirl. "She really appealed to me externally. I had a desire to propose sexual contact to her. I tried to start a dialogue, but she didn't respond. Then I grabbed her by the hand and dragged her toward the forest belt. She screamed for about 5 seconds. At that moment, not knowing what to do, I decided to strangle her. I was afraid that if I let her go, she might remember me and go to the police," Golikov confessed. This information was later confirmed by the investigative committee. In October, Eduard's mother said she faced bullying and threats after her son's arrest. She is sure her heir didn't commit this crime, but the father of the deceased girl disagreed with the woman, saying that Golikov himself didn't deny it. He followed the girl and took her phone. In a court video, the suspect repented for not calling an ambulance for Dana, but just left and asked to be released. After Eduard's face started appearing in all the news, 3 residents of Kamensk-Uralsky immediately complained about his harassment. One of them reported that they met him 10 years ago. The girl was only 15 then. Her name was Alyona. She got a summer job at a grocery store where he worked as a security guard. Eduard looked at her strangely and smiled, a gaze like a maniac's. He offered to walk her home, but the schoolgirl refused. Her young age didn't bother the man at all. He invited her over to chat and have tea. Another harassment on the day of Edouard's arrest was shared on social networks by 19-year-old Maria. Once the girl got a job at the factory where Edouard worked, he immediately paid special attention to the young one, wanted to get acquainted. She said she was married, but he became only more persistent. For another month, he followed her on a bicycle until the girl changed her route home. And 36-year-old Maria, to tell her story, came right to the court building on the day of Edouard's arrest. According to her, in 2015, the man tried to assault her. When she and a friend left a cafe late in the evening, they couldn't call a taxi for a long time. Edouard drove by in a car with a friend. They offered a ride. They dropped off the friend first, and when driving Maria, they asked to stop at the garage to add oil to the car. The woman agreed. In the garage, Edouard suddenly threw her onto a couch and began undressing her. Frightened Masha fought back and ran away, and when she went to the police, they said there was no corpus delicti. And she had almost forgotten this story when she suddenly saw Edouard in the news and immediately recognized his face. However, there is no official evidence for these versions. But Tatiana Alexieva, Golikov's ex-girlfriend, spoke in his defense and said that her ex couldn't have done anything like that. According to his neighbors, Edouard lived in a 3-room apartment and led a reclusive life, and friends called him modest and adequate. To track him down and question him about the presence or absence of an alibi, criminal investigation detectives had to lie in ambush for a day. The bicycle and clothes the man was wearing on the night of the girl's death, as well as other important evidence for the investigation, were seized. Golikov was brought to court in handcuffs. The man's face showed no emotions. He only discontentedly surveyed the journalists present in court as he was led down the corridor. The hearing was held in closed session. In October 2024, Edouard was sentenced. 21 years and 1 month in a strict regime colony. In his last word, the man stated, "My fault is that I didn't call an ambulance and didn't call anywhere, but I didn't hide and wasn't going to leave. I didn't take her life." Golikov's relatives didn't believe in his guilt. His aunt thought Ilinik died from poisoning with energy drinks, a photo of which the victim posted a few hours before death. The dad of the deceased schoolgirl agreed with the court's sentence, confident that the criminal received deserved punishment. The court's ruling was appealed by the defense. The next day, September 15th, the Sverdlovsk Regional Court found no grounds for changing the measure of restraint. The lawyer's complaint was left unsatisfied, and the judicial act remains in force, reported the press service of the regional court. Also, his godmother said that her friend, who cleans on the train, that evening in one of the cars noticed a group of teenagers, among whom was Dana. She remembered this company well. When the kids left the car, a bunch of empty energy drink cans remained. The godmother is sure that the girl felt bad precisely because of them, and she choked on vomit, and Edouard might have been forced to take the blame for her death. Acquaintances of the 16-year-old girl claimed that Edouard followed her posts on social networks and was subscribed to her Telegram channel from a fake account, from where he learned she had arrived. It should be noted that the expertise in the case was conducted twice, and for the second, it was necessary to exhume the schoolgirl's body. A forensic medical expert noticed oddities in the conclusions of both expertises. In the first expertise, he found no signs indicating strangulation, and the experts couldn't clearly establish the cause of death. In the second, which used both primary materials and data obtained during exhumation, specialists stated that death occurred as a result of compression of the neck organs by hands. However, a little below in the conclusion, it is indicated that the possibility is not excluded that the cause of death was closing the mouth and nose. To help her son, Golikov's mother sold the apartment and hired lawyers. However, this didn't help. The court ordered Edouard to pay moral compensation in the amount of 10 million rubles to the injured party. Earlier, the woman stated about threats coming to her address. Now she is forced to change places of stay and hide even from relatives. "I'm afraid to go outside. At home, I walk bent over, sleep 3 hours a day. And they write that I allegedly drink nonstop. Only changing my name and surname saves me. Everyone knows who I am. But how can you give a guy 21 years? The mother of the convict indignantly said. The woman believes that Edouard was riding his usual route, not pursuing the deceased girl. She calls on law enforcement to find the real causes of death. Also, according to an unknown passenger who rode the same last flight as Dana, he and a comrade walked literally the same path, but only didn't go into the forest. Through the place where the police found the body, the guys passed approximately at midnight. However, they heard no screams or sounds of struggle. Learning of his heiress's death, Alexander Ilinik, under her last post on her personal page on VKontakte, where there were laconic biographical facts, wrote that he loves her very, very much. If you watch this video to the end, give it a like. It will help the channel. And subscribe so you don't miss our new investigations of complex topics. You were on the Longchick channel. Until new meetings.